Welcome back to the channel. We're going to continue working on our 1993 Mustang GT convertible. Last time we got all of our quarters off and our rear body panel. Now it's time to cut our parts car apart. Remember this little guy? This is the one we cut our front end off of for our other 1993 Mustang convertible. This time we're going to cut the back end off. I think we got a pretty good deal on this car, and we're still going to have quite a bit left over, so maybe that'll be the beginning of Scott's Mustang Emporium. So let's start stripping it down and get our parts off of here. We can start by disconnecting our wiring harness for our deck lid. I have a tendency to forget these, so I go ahead and do it first. Pull the ground screw out of it and unplug our connectors. Push that harness out of there and tuck it up in our deck lid. Then we can start taking off all of our trim around our top opening. We're going to do this the right way. Somebody had already taken the top off, so it's a lot easier to get this trim off than the way we did it the last time. Take the hinge covers off first because that covers up all of our other trim. Just a couple of screws in the bottom and then it's glued down there. And we got to do a little excavating here. Pulling all this old crusty dum-dum out of here. Butyl tape, whatever you want to call it. It's not soft anymore. It's kind of like crunchy. So we'll dig out the screw heads and then spin them out of there. Pull our cover off of there. And we're going to start pulling our side trim off. Get that one screw that's screwed in from the back where the top normally goes. And then a bunch of nuts across the bottom. Only needed to take 2 out because 2 of our studs are already broken. It wasn't me. I'm going to go ahead and pull those broken studs out of the quarter so they're out of our way. That way I don't lose them later and I can glue them onto the trim piece, and then we can use that trim piece if we need to and sell it if we don't. We'll pull the other side off. This one has a few more screws on it. That one needed a little WD-40. Careful not to break these studs. And we have one that we need to dig out of there. We can pull our piece across the back off. It's much easier to get to these when the top's not in the way. Who would have guessed the process is easier when you do it the right way? Once we have all the nuts off of our little trim piece, we can go ahead and pry it up out of there. We don't have to be too careful. This one's made of metal and not plastic, so it's less likely to break, although it still might break. Peel it out of the glue. And now we can start pulling our deck lid off of here. We'll unbolt the springs. Stuff them down in there and close the deck lid. Now we can unbolt our hinges. Furthest one forward has a nut on the back side, and then the other one's just a self-tapping screw that runs into the quarter panel. And we have to try to get our socket back. It's stuck in all that glue. And our deck lid's ready to come off. Set that off to the side. We're going to need it. Now we can pull our piece across the back off. We got one missing screw already. Somebody's been here before. And we managed to get every single one of the shims stuck to our piece instead of the body. We're going to peel those off of there. Since we're probably going to lose our originals, we'll have some spares. We can go ahead and pull our bumper cover off of here. It's supposed to be a bunch of push pins across the back that hold the reinforcement. And we only have one that's still remaining. So we'll pop that one out of there. And now we can start unbolting our bumper from our quarter and our rear body panel. We'll have to go dust off our 9mm socket for these. And look at that, Narnia has a back door, so when we drop our nuts down in our quarter, they just fall right out the bottom. Continue to unbolt the rest of it. Hopefully we don't drop anything in this quarter because this Narnia doesn't have a back door. The parts are gone forever. And of course, that's the side that we're most likely to drop them in because the filler neck is in there, so there's not a lot of room. Slide our cover off. Now we're going to unplug the harness to our fuel tank. And you're probably thinking, well, why don't you pull the bumper reinforcement off now? Oh, no. Ford had other ideas. We have to pull the gas tank off to get the reinforcement off. We don't have to, but it's a struggle if we don't, and we're going to need the gas tank out anyway. So we're just going to do it the way Ford intended to put it back together. We'll unbolt the bottom of our filler neck, at least the gasket from the bottom of the body panel. We'll unbolt the filler neck from inside the gas door.
And we can start dropping our tank straps. A couple bolts up in the front. There's pins in the rear that hold those straps in. Fuel lines were already off, so I didn't have to disconnect those. We drop our tank down and then slide it out of the filler neck. Just a rubber gasket in there and the metal tube slides into it. And we had one vent line that was still connected. Shove our tank out of the way. Surprisingly enough, there was still some fuel in it. I expected since they took the fuel lines off, they were trying to drain it, but I guess not. And we'll slide our gas tank cover out of here. Would you look at that? He's cleaning. We're going to pour out our gas so we can properly dispose of it. It smells pretty old. I believe it's an early 2000s vintage. I threw a drain pan down on the off chance that as I'm trying to pour this all over the floor, I miss and get some in the pan. So if I do manage to fill this pan up, I'll do it a couple times and then dispose of it properly. There's about half a tank in there, so it's going to fill up that pan more than once.
If you were wondering where the gas went, well, 5 gallons of it went in our beater Grand Am here. It likes it. It would have been 6, but I have bad aim, so it ended up on the ground. And if you're worried about the dirt and debris, we got a couple of paint strainers in here. So that cut all our debris. So all we got in here is some really old gas. It'll run just fine. Because I'm cheap.
Our filler neck is completely disconnected, but we'll slide the little collar off that holds it out of the gas tank. And then we can slide our filler neck out of its little boots in there. Now we can unbolt our filler pocket. It's a big plastic box in there. And we'll unbolt our gas tank door. Filler pocket out of there. It's got a drain tube that exits outside the body panel. And now we can start pulling our bumper reinforcement out. This bolt we could have accessed with the gas tank in there. It goes in from left to right and it's on the outside of the frame rail. There isn't a ton of room, so you either need to use a ratcheting wrench or some kind of ratchet. We got a bolt out of there. And now we can get the one out of this side. This one there's plenty of room, also goes in from left to right, and that's the one that the gas tank is in the way of. And now because I live in a fantasy land, I think a little wiggle and pull is actually going to get this out of the car. Nope, it's going to take a little more than that. A little persuasion.
Give it a little tappy. Tap, tap, tap-a-roo.
On each side, work it out of there. Ford had some pretty lax tolerances on pretty much every gap on a Mustang, except for the rear bumper. Where the bumper shock goes through the rear rail, it's a pretty tight, pretty close tolerance. So with a little rust on those bumper shocks, they don't come out of there. Once we get this thing out of here, we'll clean all that rust off so when we're ready to put it back together, it should slide right together.
I win.
Now we can take our gas tank straps off. The fronts just unbolt. The backs have a roll pin that goes through the end of them. And on each side of those bracket, there's a hole. So we just push them out, slide them down, and then we'll put them back in there so that we can lose them later. Line it up with the hole in that little bracket. And we're going to cheat. Reach in from the bottom. It's like a game of Operation. Luckily, they don't rust in there. We pulled the trunk gasket off. We've got to save this. We're going to need it for our other car. So ours was all torn up. We'll pull our front quarter moldings off. They're just two-sided taped on. They're not going to be on our way, but this two-sided tape puts up quite a fight. It's a lot easier to do it when there's a car attached to the quarter panel than later on. Just going to slide a putty knife behind them and work our way through the tape. And we got a little rust back there. The two-sided tape on the bottom of this was pretty much non-existent, except for the little back portion here. Same with the top. Now we can take the moldings off the rear. These are bolted in, so we'll just spin the nuts off on the inside. And we didn't break any studs. Pull the one off the passenger side. Now we can pull our gaskets off for our quarter trim with Ford's favorite fasteners, 100 different rivets. This one is also a two-piece design. It's not supposed to be, but it is now. We're still going to save it, just in case we need it. I used a bunch of little push-in clips on here instead of rivets. I guess they ran out since they used so many. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I also glued this one in. I want to tear the glue, but not the gasket. We'll have to pull these alignment pins out of our quarter. They're going to be in our way. They're just held in with 2 screws and about 6 gallons of Loctite. Sometimes you need to heat them up from the back. This one was actually pretty forgiving, so it came right out. Bottom one was just fine. We'll reach in and hold the bracket on the back before we end up dropping it. Then we'll put it all back together so we don't lose those screws. And then back to drilling out all of Ford's rivets. Holds in this little gasket here at the top of the door. We'll pop our gasket out of there. And there's a little piece that still remains on the top of our quarter. The bottom of our quarter panel is welded onto the rocker from the inside. But in order to be able to see all those welds, we need to get all of our seam sealer out of there, or just basically dumped it in there and let it flow out. So we're just going to heat it up, because it's never going to come out if we don't, and then we're going to scrape it out of there when it's soft. It'll take a little time to get it out of here, but we'll get it. If we could heat it up from the backside, it would pop right out of there, but there was really no way to get to it. It looks like the last of it, and that's what we're looking for, that seam across the bottom. There's no rust in here, so I think we're going to put this quarter in all the way at the bottom. So now we're going to start drilling out all of our spot welds. We don't want to drill all the way through here on our body panel, because we are going to be using that. All the rest of these we can drill all the way through if we want, and I actually did drill pilot holes and then went back over it with my 5/16. Since we're not using all these panels underneath, we really don't care if we make extra holes. We don't want to grind them out because we are using that panel, and we don't want to be welding up big holes. Put ones down at the bottom of the quarter. Clean up all the shrapnel, make sure we didn't miss any, since those are going to be hard to get to. Looks like we got them all. So now we can start knocking it loose. Got a makeshift scraper in here. So far, so good. Looks like we drilled dead center in all of our spot welds, so it's popping apart pretty nice. Of course, as I say that, I found one that wanted to fight me. So inside the quarter, we have that lip in there. We can't really get our scraper in, so I just have my angle breaker. I'm just going to kind of pry against it, give a little wiggle, and see if I can break whatever's in there loose. Now we can try to get those ones on the bottom. We'll see them on the outside, we can get in there. And we're just watching on the inside to make sure we're not tearing it up too bad. Now the fun part, inside the wheel well. There's really no good way to get in there. So we're going to slowly work our way around so that we're not tearing everything up. And now instead of drilling all the spot welds out of the bottom of this where that hole is rusted in it, we're just going to cut the bottom off. Since we left our other car a little bit longer, where you just cut this one a little lower than where we cut the other one, and we can overlap it. I'm actually going to cut it a little bit lower than where I need it. I can always shorten it later, depending on where our rust is on the inside. I just want to make sure that I'm inside that molding or below that molding, so that when we are all done, we put the molding on and we cover up any bad bodywork if the bodywork gnome is having a bad day that day. Now we can heat up our wheel opening. There's a little bit of glue that holds that quarter onto our wheelhouse. Also helps it rust a little bit better. So we just need to get it out of there. Half the time it doesn't actually bond the quarter on. We kind of throw it in there and hope for the best. But on the off chance that some of it did actually adhere, we want to heat it up so that we're not bending the quarter too bad when we're trying to yank it out of here. I want to heat it up just enough to break that glue loose, but not melt all the paint. There's a fine line there. Put our scraper in there. Looks like we got a lot of it free. Work our way around. Might be a couple spot welds holding on there as well. Kind of wiggle it and see where it's flexing and where it's not. Not too much that you put a buckle in there. Just enough so you can see what's still holding on. And maybe, if you're lucky, even get one of those welds to break loose. We've got one spot weld back here that's holding on for dear life. Maybe it's glue. Well, that was close. I don't want to end up on the floor. I forgot my life alert bracelet at home.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
We got most of it. One last one at the bottom there. There's always one. Slide our quarter off. Looks like we're going to have to cut up a little higher to get rid of that rust on the bottom. Now that our left quarter panel is off, we can start pulling off our rear body panel and our right quarter. I'm going to try to leave all those together in one big piece. We'll see how it goes. Use our scraper to break these spot welds loose. And now we start drilling out our spot welds along the bottom of our rear body panel. This holds it to our frame rail. We're going to take our brackets for our gas tank straps with the rear body panel because it's easier to get the body panel out with them attached, and because the one on the right side was crushed pretty bad. That looks like everything on our rear body panel.
3 days later.
Well, I never thought I'd be working in this shop again, aka my original garage. But sometimes you gotta take a step back to take a few steps forward. So we had to clean all the stuff out of here because this was basically storage. It was really the only reason I kept this place, other than the nice spot I have up there for selling cars. So we moved everything out of here so we get this thing in here so we can start working on it because, well, it's all I have right now. So we're gonna get this quarter and rear body panel off of here, and then we're probably gonna bring the other Mustang here so we can throw it all back together. Good a place as any. So let's get our quarter off and our rear body panel and go from there.
Here we are 10 seconds into our new location, and we're already wearing gloves. I don't like where this channel is headed. So we're going to take our door alignment pin off of here, but that bottom bolt is not going to come off nicely. The top one's coming off, so we'll spin that one out of there, but that bottom one was either going to strip out or snap off. You know, one of those cases where it goes from tight to loose in one quick snap. So before we break it, give it one last try, and we just have that twisting feeling. So we're going to use our favorite method for getting bolts loose, especially since we can get right to the back of it. We're just going to heat it up. Look away, safety experts. We're going to set our propane torch in here on top of the gas tank. But wait, it gets worse. We're going to leave it unattended while we go ahead and drill out these rivets for our weather stripping on the top of our door. I mean, what could go wrong? One last rivet head, and I believe our bolt is done baking, so Pull our torch out of here and yep, comes right out. All that smoke is probably all that Loctite melting off of there. And paint. Hold on to that bracket. And we'll go ahead and put the bolts back in that bracket so we don't lose them in case we need them for putting the car back together. Even put this one in. It's a little warm. Should go right in. Now we can start drilling off our quarter. Since we're taking this corner off with the channel, we have to drill through the centerpiece and through the channel. The piece that we're looking for is actually in the middle. So we're going to dig our way down to it. I'm just going to bend this top piece out of the way. We don't need it. A little bit of rust in there. That's factory Ford rust. Scraper to break those last couple loose in there. It looks like everything's free. Now we can start drilling off our quarter. On the front. A little too far there. Now we can break all those welds loose. A little trouble with that one, so we'll hit it from the other side so we don't bend it too much. We're just going to tap on that pillar and see if we can break all these spot welds loose. We're not trying to get underneath it. I'm just hitting the panel underneath, knocking it away from the top panel. A lot of times, that's all you need. Now we can go ahead and drill our spot welds out of the bottom of the quarter where it meets the rocker. I didn't have to take out the seam sealer. It actually just fell out in one big chunk. We drill out all of our spot welds on our wheel opening. Ford went for quantity, not quality. A couple more inside of our trunk. And there's a couple that go through the floor for that bracket for our fuel tank strap. And when I wasn't looking, my camera and Mr. Spotty were huffing paint in the corner of the garage. So we have some abstract art thing going on with our footage here. If you tilt your head to the left, squint a little bit and stand on one foot, you can kind of tell that this is shot from inside the car. And what I'm doing right now is opening up the floor with the assault can opener right above where that bracket is for our fuel tank strap. It's because that bracket has two welds, I think two, maybe three, that are welded to the inside of the frame rail, and this is really the only way to get to those without destroying anything other than our rusted floor. So once I get those out of there, I think our panel is ready to come off. In addition to making us an access door in the floor to get to those spot welds, the assault can opener and its vibration actually broke loose a majority of the spot welds, all the ones on our wheel well and the front, the ones that we still had sitting in there. Now a little tap, tap, tap-a-roo, and we're hopefully going to be able to get this piece out. There's another bracket that kind of goes underneath the frame rail. The parts are kind of interlocked together since they're not supposed to go on this way, but I don't want to drill them out into separate pieces. So we just have to figure out how to make it work. Kind of have to go down and back all at the same time, maybe a little bit to the right. Once we figure out the trick, we'll know how to put it back in the next time. And hopefully, we only have to put it in one time in the new car. Now you can see our access hole that we cut during our abstract art era. It's not pretty, but it is functional. I had enough space to get in there and drill out those spot welds. Had I been trying to save this floor and that bracket, it would have entailed, well, some very creative drilling processes to get to those spot welds in there. But it is possible, but definitely takes a lot more time than just hacking the thing open with a can opener. Besides, it's my favorite part. Now we need to take this wheelhouse off, as ours was damaged, so we're going to need to replace the back half of it. We're not replacing the whole thing because it goes quite a ways up there and it's a lot of work. And the repair procedure allows us to splice this thing in just about anywhere. Knock all of our spot welds loose, drill out out the one that we missed. And Ford decided to put a seam weld all the way across that. So we're gonna have to just smash it out of there. We're gonna end up cutting the piece on the inside out and we'll grind it off later. And then I'll probably just drill a bunch of spot weld holes in there and weld it up that way, instead of stitching it together in one big seam. Now we'll break out the assault can opener again. We're gonna trim this piece off so we can get the back of our wheelhouse off, all those welds that we gotta tear out of there. And we're gonna make a little door so that we can get our reciprocating butter knife in there and cut the front of the wheelhouse where we're gonna put it in. We'll open our little door and we'll cut it. And on this side, we'll just use a die grinder to finish our cut. Trying to cut it straight. It is a little bit longer than what we're going to need. Probably not going to put it in there because it'd be hard to weld underneath that channel. We'll probably put it in as far back as we can. But I want to make sure I got enough.
Well, that looks like it for today. We have all of our parts off of our parts car. So now I'm going to stuff it up in that little hole up there so I have some room to work on our other car back here. Let me know if you guys need any parts off this thing. I got some nice rust-free doors, actually really clean. 2 of them. I got a front bumper off of an LX. I got the rear bumper off of this car. It's got some damage on the other side. I got a 7.5 rear end, cowl panel, rockers, strut towers, frame rails, all kinds of stuff. I don't know that I'll be doing any more of these. So it's gonna head over to Scott's Mustang Emporium eventually, but I'll put some of the stuff on my website, and if you don't see it there, just send me an email, and some of the bigger stuff, we'll have to probably local pickup only unless you want to ship it freight. But everything else, it's even got a nice rust-free gas tank, a spare tire that's well used, the cover for the gas tank, some quarter panel plastics, and little odds and ends. So let me know if you need any of that stuff, and I will be back next time, and we'll maybe start putting this thing, well, those parts, back on our other car. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you then.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh- I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh- I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.